Hey guys, so it's been a while since I did a video, just sort of been super low energy lately, and got my wisdom teeth taken out last week and definitely did not feel like talking, but I'm more or less better now, but we're still going to use that as the excuse if I talk like a dumbass today, though. I think we both know I'll turn off the camera and start over if it's too bad. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about was just sort of how confusing and inexperienced therapy is as someone who has attempted and sort of failed out of it before and is now trying again. So I mentioned recently that I'd started with a new therapist and I liked her much better than my previous ones. Somewhat that's just because she has a more casual demeanor and more personable and less like a doctor. And it's mostly because she treats my anxiety and the way I view it as more valid and less in question than my previous therapists have. Because, like, I know what I'm dealing with and I know why, and I know that it's illogical in a lot of the scenarios that it applies, but it happens anyway. So I don't need someone to debate that baseline. It's not very helpful and it makes me feel worse. So she doesn't, and I appreciate that. And through our first few appointments, I've just generally been getting more comfortable with her. And I didn't necessarily feel like I was making progress, but I kind of just have that expectation with therapy. It feels a little aimless in that I'm not really sure what the end goal is supposed to be. Like, people expect that you bring an end goal in when you're talking during your first appointment, and I mean, I have one. I would like to not be anxious, or I would like to be much less anxious. Um, but obviously I don't know how to make that happen. So I don't really know exactly what we're working towards. And I feel like it's sort of on the therapist to help me figure that out, right? That's kind of the whole point. I'm paying someone else to help me. Um, but in any case, while I didn't necessarily feel like I was making huge progress, I was getting more comfortable, and it's really nice to have somebody to talk to about this stuff. And I was improving slightly with stuff like eye contact for sure, and so it's been helpful in that sense. But something sort of weird that I didn't expect happened at the end of my third appointment, and she said that she had one more therapy technique she wanted to try, and then if that didn't seem to be helping, she would refer me to another therapist. And that kind of sucked to hear because besides the fact that, obviously it's very stressful to try a new therapist, especially that quickly, and hope that I'll mesh with them decently, it kind of reinforces the feeling I always have with therapy that I'm doing something wrong. It's like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing, but every time I've had a therapist, it feels like they have some expectation of how I'm going to get better that they can't quite articulate and that I can never meet. And, it's just like, I don't know. Do they expect me to just come in one day and be like, I wasn't depressed anymore. I had no suicidal thoughts. And also, I applied for a job. Because, like, that's not going to happen, especially in just like a few hour-long appointments. So it's sort of this weird feeling I always have with therapy. It's like, I feel like they're expecting something of me and they don't say exactly what it is, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. So that's why therapy is always sort of weird for me. She did have a specific reason she wanted to refer me to someone else, though, because she thinks that perhaps dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, could be useful for me, and she doesn't do that. And I tried to read about DBT so I could briefly describe it for this video, but I can't. I really can't explain it. Descriptions somehow make it sound both quite overcomplicated and also just kind of nebulous and nonspecific. Um, but that's sort of how I feel about the various therapy acronyms in the first place. So if I ever experience it, I will talk about it. Until then, I will just kind of leave that alone. Um, but the other technique that she did want to try, I have done one appointment with that now, and so I wanted to talk about that a bit, and it's called EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So that's quite a mouthful. Um, it's considered a treatment primarily for distress related to traumatic memories, and many studies have found it useful for reducing or eliminating PTSD. But she thought it might be applicable to AvPD, so we gave it a try. So I'll read a brief description of what it is from the official EMDR website first. Eye movements or other bilateral stimulation are used during one part of the session. After the clinician has determined which memory to target first, He or she asks the client to hold different aspects of that event or thought in mind and to use his or her eyes to track the therapist's hand as it moves back and forth across the client's field of vision. As this happens, for reasons believed by a Harvard researcher to be connected with the biological mechanisms involved in rapid eye movement, REM sleep, internal associations arise and the clients begin to process the memory and disturbing feelings. So, it's not entirely clear why it's supposed to be useful, but studies have shown that it is for people dealing with traumatic memories in any case. And what we did involved machine vibration that alternated between my hands instead of finger and eye movement, but the same bilateral movement. It's apparently a similar thing. I don't know why, but anyway. So basically, while that movement of whatever sort is occurring for between 15 and 30 seconds, um, you're supposed to think about whatever traumatic or emotionally disturbing memory you guys agree on. And then afterwards, they stop whatever the movement is, you take a deep breath, and you just sort of share out loud whatever you're thinking or feeling. And then you rinse and repeat. And this was the entirety of my last therapy session, so nearly an hour, and will be the next one. And one more quote I wanted to read real quick from the EMDR website is, unlike talk therapy, the insights clients gain in EMDR therapy result not so much from clinician interpretation, but from the client's own accelerated intellectual and emotional processes. So my first impression of EMDR, at least as someone with AvPD who doesn't really think I'm dealing with specific traumatic memories, is that it was extremely stressful. And that quote I just read sort of sums up how it made me feel. Like, it's on me to figure out what I'm supposed to be figuring out. Like, I'm doing something wrong if I'm not able to find something insightful to say about the causes of my anxiety, basically every 30 seconds, because that's what this is. It's like, you have a 30-second window or so where you just have this minor stimulation occurring and you're supposed to be thinking about whatever specific traumatic memories you're grappling with. Then they stop and you say whatever you thought about, and then they pretty much immediately restart the thing and you do that again. And it caused me really intense performance anxiety, feeling like I just have to vomit out something at least semi-coherent, if not somehow insightful, every 30 seconds. Like I was just wasting everybody's time if I couldn't figure out something super relevant to say just every little bit. And it definitely was made a little bit worse by the fact that she mentioned, this is the last thing we're going to try, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to refer you to someone else. Because, it just sort of feels like it's on me to make this happen. And if not, then you got to do something else that's even more stressful. And it was not a good experience. It just sort of felt like I was alternating between completely panicking and shutting down and unable to have real thoughts, because that's what happens when I'm put on the spot in real life scenarios. That's what always has, like in school and stuff. If someone asks me to walk up to the board and solve a question at school, I shut down. I'm unable to do it. Even though I know how to do it normally, I just can't because I'm so anxious, and I'm just paralyzed with thoughts about how stupid I'm going to look if I don't think of something, and that prevents me from thinking of something. And yeah, that definitely applied here. And sort of alternately, when I was able to force myself through that, I would just try to desperately think of anything tangentially related to whatever the memories or events we were talking about last were. Just try to think of something that somehow sounds insightful. And I gotta say, I didn't come across anything that was of any real value to me. And she also said at the end something along the lines of, I know we didn't have any real breakthroughs this time, but that's normal. We'll try again next time. And it's just, it sort of feels bad. It's like, I'm not sure what sort of breakthrough could even possibly come from this. And it might make more sense in the context of someone that's dealing with specific traumatic memories. I obviously can't speak to that because what I was dealing with is more just patterns that made me feel like a shitty person, basically. And so it's like I've kind of figured these things out about myself and I kind of know why this is happening. And what I'm missing is how to change that. And I don't know. I don't think anything in EMDR is necessarily going to change that, or perhaps individual therapy at all. I'm mostly trying it because it's just that's sort of one of the things you do in mental health treatment to show that you're trying to make progress is of individual therapy. It's always constantly recommended to me and to, I guess, pretty much anybody. And it's just sort of weird because even when I feel like I'm finally getting comfortable with it, it's just there's always sort of this expectation that I'm supposed to have solved something and then I don't. And yeah, so that kind of sucks. I would still like to try group therapy, as I think, although that would be horrible for my anxiety, it could potentially be helpful in different ways, just as far as just getting used to trying to actually talk to people and emotionally function and things like that. Um, and I have found one place that supposedly has groups for anxiety. They are not answering my emails, so of course, I guess the super anxious person's going to have to call them on the phone if I want to get in touch with them. That seems to be how it goes most of the time, but anyway, that's about all I wanted to talk about today. It's a little bit rambling, but all things considered, I'm glad that I got it done and didn't do 100 takes, maybe 15 or so. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on therapy again and EMDR so far, and I'm curious if any of you have ever participated in EMDR and what you thought about that. But it's one of those things that's kind of weird and kind of sounds pseudoscience-y, but studies support it, and I'm glad that it's helped some people, but it definitely seems weird and stressful for me. But maybe I'll change my tune on it as we try it a couple more times. I have another appointment in about a week, so yeah. Anyway, that's about it. So see you guys later.